IB Nation, Notre Dame fans, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by FanDuel. And boy, do we have a show set for you guys today, and quite a week, actually, for all of you. And that's Trevor. My guy Trevor's with me as always. And we are going to have a little bit of a changed schedule this week because this week is all about predictions. With one exception, we weren't quite ready to not have a buy-sell hold this week, Trev, because how good last week was, we're like, we got to have another one because I think our fan base is starting to get into to in-season mode, man. They are ready. They're right in the middle of hype for preseason. Lots of great questions last week, so we are going to still do a buy-sell hold on Wednesday. But today, we are going to start our conference season predictions. We'll have some Notre Dame topics that we'll mix in and start shows off with. And today we're going to talk about Notre Dame and it's dominating the ACC. We're going to talk about the AP Top 25. We're going to share some thoughts on the injuries that were announced this weekend. And then we're going to dive into our ACC predictions at the end of the show. Trevor and I are going to give you our list 17-1. We're going to give you players of the year, rookie predictions, coach of the year predictions, and who we think will play in and win the conference championship. We are not going to tell you who we think is going to make the playoff from each of the conferences because that, friends, will be Saturday, 1 o'clock on Saturday. We're going to go live and we're going to give our Notre Dame season prediction first. We are going to go through the schedule, talk about what we think that how the season is going to go, give our Notre Dame postseason, do they make the playoff or not prediction. And that is it. Then we're going to get to part 2 of the show on Saturday, which is our playoff predictions. The brackets will be revealed in 6 days, folks. 5 days, actually, now. So the aforementioned, not sure if they exist bracket, it does exist. Going to have some minor tweaks to it. Trev is going to finish his up, and we're going to give those on Saturday. So this is prediction week at Irish Breakdown. And then next week, we'll kind of start launching into some of our adjustments we're going to make, some changes we got coming up for the in-season thing. But man, Trev, I've been waiting on this week all summer. I know a lot of times people will start getting predictions out early in the summer, and I like to kind of wait a little bit later and just see how rosters shake out and learn as much as we can. And now we're ready to do it, man. I'm excited. But before we begin, obviously, we do have some Notre Dame news that we want to get into. But, man, I'm absolutely fired up about this week. And just reading my magazines, getting my depth chart set up, doing my stats breakdowns, and then just typing in all the schedules and doing the win-loss predictions, because the way that we do it is we actually predict outcomes of all the games, and then we come to, okay, here's the record. So it's not based off my gut is this is the 5th best team in the ACC. It's like, well, because like the team that I have number 2, if we were just doing rankings off gut, I definitely don't have number 2. But you look at the schedule and you're like, well, they got a more favorable schedule than some of the teams that I like more than them. So very fired up about that, Trev. But that's what I love this week when we start to make these predictions. And I'm just letting y'all know we're going to expect to see some of y'all give us your predictions this week as well. So, like, this isn't just going to be these 2 guys right here giving the predictions. We want to hear from you all in the chat. What do you think about our predictions? First and foremost is, you get to evaluate the things that we say and do and the predictions we make. But we want to hear from you guys. And, USMA, I still believe the brackets do not exist. Very well done with the use of believe there, my friend, who is our podcast partner. We appreciate that. But I'm excited, Trev. It's going to be a fun week. And when I told Trev this, we're going to do this week, he was like, let's go. I mean, he was literally fired up. So I know you're excited, and I sure am too.
This was the week that I saw in our offseason schedule that was going to basically tell me, okay, football's almost here. We're doing the countdowns, and I know we're through the position previews, but it's like, okay, now once we get to conference preview week, it's almost time. I mean, 2 weeks from this Saturday, Notre Dame plays football. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that. We're 20 days out from kickoff. I mean, we're 12 days away from there just being college football on TV. Week 0 is the 23rd.
So far.
Yeah.
So far about that.
We're almost there. I'm ready to dive into it. And with college football coming up, Brian, I know one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, before we dive into the ACC preview, the AP poll dropped this afternoon, about an hour before the show. And some interesting topics of discussion here, but it was released. Notre Dame came in at number 6. We're going to talk about their ranking relative to some other things, but the AP poll has finally been released, Brian.
Obviously you said Notre Dame's number 6. I'll be honest, even with how much I don't value the AP voters and just think they just don't do a very good job, I'm still even shocked they had him 6. I thought they'd at least be 5. I mean, you had Notre Dame number 5 when they had a first-year head coach and a brand new quarterback, and in 2022, and they go, obviously they don't finish in the top 5. They were number 7 last year in the preseason AP top 25 and finished number 2. I should have known better. Sometimes you just maybe sometimes you give some people too much credit. And somebody on our board pointed out, like, if Brett McMurphy didn't have his ridiculous ranking of Notre Dame at 7 and Georgia at 1, Notre Dame leaps Georgia because they were just behind Georgia. And sometimes it can just take one person's bad poll to completely change the ranking. But Notre Dame did finish number 6. You want to talk about just some of the things that just show that there still is some Notre Dame, I don't want to say hate because I think we use that word too loosely, but like disrespect, not respecting Notre Dame enough, or still not buying into Notre Dame. Irish Blooded on our chat on the message board pointed this out, and I looked at in the coaches ranking, and it's similar. In the coaches ranking of the top 6 teams, Notre Dame is the only team, they were 5, that did not get a first place vote. Everybody else got at least 2. Clemson got 2, Georgia got 3, Penn State got 14, Oregon got 20, or Ohio State got 20, and Texas got 28. When you look at the AP or the AP top 25, they had Clemson ahead of Notre Dame. That's the only difference. Both had Georgia ahead. But Oregon at number 7, who's behind Notre Dame, got a vote. Georgia got a vote. Clemson got 4. Ohio State got 11. Penn State got 23 first place votes, and Texas got 25. And I think that just goes to show that there's still a little bit of that not buying into Notre Dame yet, which people say, well, that's fair. Notre Dame's got it. And I'm like, stop. I don't want to hear your justification for it, because we as rational people can say that there's still things for Notre Dame to prove. But when you have Texas number 1 and Penn State number 2 and Clemson, who literally went 0 for 4 last year against the 4 good teams, or 1 and 4 last year against the only 5 good teams they played, and the only win was against SMU. Like, don't tell me they don't have a lot to prove. Trevor Lawrence ain't walking through that door, folks. This ain't that same 2020, 2018, 2016 team. They have a lot to prove as well. So I just found that very interesting. And then to have both the AP, or actually have the AP vote Penn State ahead of Ohio State, was another example of, this isn't just Notre Dame getting dismissed. This is also about other teams being unnecessarily hyped up. And Penn State is certainly that team for me, getting that a little bit of some weird preseason love from the voters in ways that I just can't go with them on. So that was my overall thoughts, Trev. 3 Notre Dame teams, Notre Dame opponents, are in the AP top 25. You have Miami at 10. So going to kick the season off with a top 10 battle for the second time of Marcus Freeman's tenure, because obviously Ohio State and Notre Dame in 2022 was a top 10 battle preseason. You've got Texas A&M. Were they 19, Trev? Yeah, A&M was 19, behind Oklahoma, which I thought was interesting. And then you've got Boise State at 25. And then also USC was 30th. And so they were the 5th of the team, just outside. Other Notre Dame opponents that received votes, Navy also received 5, and then Pitt received 3. So 6 Notre Dame opponents received votes. That's half the schedule. 3 of the opponents were ranked in the preseason top 25, including their first 2 opponents. And Notre Dame will play those 3 ranked teams within the first 5 games of the season, first 6 weeks, first 5 games. So just speaks more volume about how tough this early part of the slate is going to be for Notre Dame. We're going to find out real soon in the season how good Notre Dame is. There's some schedules we're going over in the ACC, Trevor, and I'm like, this team who I think is going to be bad is going to start season 3-0. It's playing nobody, but Notre Dame is a different story. We're going to find out real quick how good this football team is.
Yeah, agreed. The AP poll, it's always a hot topic of discussion. Again, it's just another one of those dominoes that lets us know that we're closer to college football season. So on one hand, it makes you excited until you actually open up what the rankings are, and then you kind of see what debauchery went down and who got ranked where. And the Notre Dame thing, it's frustrating. I wish I could say that I'm surprised, but how this offseason has gone with the continued overlooking of how athletic this team actually is and how talented this team actually is. The biggest not surprise to me was Texas being at 1. Yeah, I mean, they're just following suit with every other outlet that ranks Texas as having the best offense and the best defense and one of the best coaches and one of the best returning whatever. And, just falling in line. I mean, it even goes over to FanDuel. You know what I mean? Texas has the number one best odds to win the national championship on FanDuel at plus 550. And so that wasn't that big of a surprise to me. I did think it was interesting outside of the top 25, though, that Florida State received more votes to be in the top 25 than what Navy did. After you consider what Florida State did last year and go 2-10, and then what Navy brings back after beating Oklahoma, a team that they ranked 18th in the country, got less votes than a team that just came off of a 2-10 season. I thought that was a little interesting. And then Miami, I assumed they were going to be ranked somewhere in the top 15. I didn't know if they were going to be quite 10th, but I mean, again, it just goes to show it's why you go and play games at Notre Dame. This is their second top 10 matchup in Marcus Freeman's tenure, like you said. And now it's 3 of the last 4 seasons they begin their game. They begin their season on the road against a ranked opponent. They did it in 22 last year and now this year. So that's going to be really interesting to watch that unfold.
A buddy of mine, Joe, just sent me, there's a page that shows you the highest and lowest that Notre Dame is ranked by every AP voter. And there were 2 people that had them ranked number 2. So that would be John Johnson, who has them number 2 behind Texas. Kurt Kenny had them number 2 behind Penn State. He works for the San Diego Union Tribune. And then there were 5 guys that had them 5th. John Furlong, Kevin Carter, Mike Jacques, Jamal Saint, who had them number 3. He's the one guy that had Oregon number 1. And Jerry Humphrey from Alabama.com, AL.com, had Notre Dame 3rd behind Ohio State and Georgia. And you had said Josh Furlong already, who works for Salt Lake City, had them 3rd. Kevin Carter had them 3rd behind Ohio State and Oregon. And then, as I said, Mike Jacques had them 3rd. This is the funny one, though. You remember the clown last year that kept voting Notre Dame like outside the top 10, Brian Fonseca, who's from New Jersey? Like, this clown has Notre Dame 9th. And he's not the only one. There's 2 guys that have Notre Dame 9th, including Mike Hill, who works for Fox Sports, who's just terrible at his job. But this clown, Brian Fonseca, not only has Notre Dame 9th, he has Miami 4th. What are the odds if Notre Dame beats Miami, he's not going to count that as a good win for Notre Dame? It is amazing that some of these people still get to vote in this thing. And he did the same crap last year. He never gave Notre Dame respect last season. So it's just kind of hilarious to see some of these. Like Mike Hill from Fox Sports has LSU 4. He has Oregon 5, Clemson 6, Georgia 7, Alabama 8, and then Notre Dame 9. And so it's just kind of it's I'm actually counting these up. He has 5, 6, let's see, 7 SEC teams in the top 20. He has SMU 21st, by the way, in his rankings. Doesn't have A&M ranked. Doesn't have Boise ranked. So I just thought this was kind of funny. Some of these people that they're just Sam McCune from Omaha, Nebraska. He has Notre Dame 8th in his preseason top 25. And then you have a guy from Boise, Idaho. Sean Goodman has Notre Dame 8th behind LSU. So did he rank Boise State? He didn't even rank Boise State in there. He has Nebraska in the top 25, Louisville in the top 25. So I just get a kick out of these some of these individual guys. But like it's guys like this that why Notre Dame is not in the top 5. But it does make me laugh when I see these.
Michigan being at 14th was also interesting to me.
Yes,
I thought that was pretty high.
Very high.
That one was one that I didn't see because. I mean, really, in general, I disagree with Notre Dame's position in the top 10, but overall, like I don't mind the top 10 big picture when you look at the teams in there. I like that they put Arizona State 11th, South Carolina 13th. I get Illinois 12th, but I thought that Michigan and Oklahoma were ranked pretty high.
Yeah,
more specifically,
there are
Michigan.
three people that have Michigan in the top 10.
Wow,
3 people that have Michigan in the top 10. So I thought that was a little bit of a head scratcher. And then there's 8 other people that have them 11. I thought that was pretty interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
That is That is
Eric
definitely
Hansen
something you can do.
from who now works at Blue and Gold, used to be at BGI. He has Notre Dame 4th behind Texas, Penn State, and Ohio State. Again, I would have Notre Dame higher, but you have them in your top 5. I'm not gonna hammer you too much. But he did have Florida 9th, which I was like, it's a little bit of a ballsy pick. A little bit of a ballsy pick right there. So, but you'll like this one, Trev. Eric Hansen has Georgia Tech in the top 25. So I know you'll like that one. That one. So
there we go.
Yep, that's I think the only local person that votes in the AP, I believe, is Eric Hansen. So
Okay,
those are interesting. But everybody does have Notre Dame in the top 10. So there you go. 6 was the most of any Notre Dame ranking. Like more people had him 6 than any other spot, which I thought was interesting. So still a lot to prove, apparently. Still a lot to prove. Well, but yes, Michigan that high was a little bit of a head scratcher for me. Miami being top 10, I kind of get the hype, although I don't necessarily agree with them that high. And a lot of the others are kind of what we expect. We expected South Carolina to be top 15, Florida to be ranked high, K-State to be high. I agree with you that Oklahoma being at 18 is a little high. The AP or the coaches poll didn't have the Oklahoma in the top 25. Which I think was telling. Yeah. But, they have them in top 25, which I thought was interesting. I think that's the I think they are closer with Tennessee. I don't have Tennessee as high as the coaches poll. They have Tennessee 24. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
But also not having BYU in there, I would imagine, is somewhat related to the quarterback situation at BYU. I would imagine not having them in the top 25.
I think they were like number 26 on the rankings, weren't they?
Yeah, they were the team with most receiving votes, and they were 35 off, so they weren't close to being in, all that close to being in. And then Utah 27, I thought was a little interesting. But yeah, so that's the ranking. I didn't have any huge issues with them outside of I thought Michigan's way too high. I don't think I have Michigan in the top 25. I get where some of the hype about Michigan's coming from. They played Indiana tough down the stretch. They beat Ohio State. They beat Alabama. I get it. So it's not like I'm like, what are you idiots thinking? It's like they're looking at it like this. They were pretty good last year with one of the worst seasons we've ever seen of quarterback play ever, at the Division I level. And they're going to be a lot better quarterback. And, I just think that's true. But I think some of the other losses are not going to be made up for with the current talent. That's why I don't have them as high. But I'm down on Michigan compared to others, but I'm okay with people putting them in the top 25. When you look at how they finished the season.
Yeah.
With the good loss to Indiana and then the wins over Ohio. Blew out Arizona State. Northwestern. And then obviously beating Ohio State and Alabama. I thought they outplayed Alabama the whole game. It wasn't like some fluky, like the Ohio State game was a little fluky. You pick that pass off inside the 10-yard line. If you don't do that, you don't win that game because you couldn't score on Ohio State. The Alabama game, I thought they outplayed Alabama the whole game. So I get that one to a degree, even though I don't have them in there. And that's the thing, Travis, you can disagree with something and still understand where it's coming from.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of where I am for the most part with some of this stuff. But putting Miami 4 and Notre Dame 9, that's just buffoonery of the highest order. Buffoonery. And it shouldn't surprise me considering who it came from. I was made aware to this guy last year, and I was like, okay, yep, that guy's an idiot. Yep.
Well, another thing that we are going to cover before we dive into the ACC preview, Brian, is some of the injuries. We are going to address what got announced this past weekend where tight end Kevin Bauman and running back Kedren Young have been ruled out, both with ACL injuries, I believe.
No, Kevin Bauman's was a knee injury, but it was a ligament. It was something different. It wasn't quite like an anterior ACL. Forget what that C word is, but it's a little different. But it's a knee injury as well. 2 different knee injuries.
Yeah, big picture overall disappointing for 2 different reasons. One, Kedren Young was probably on the verge of a breakout year. We've been talking a lot on this channel about what his role could potentially be in this offense, especially with the loss of Riley Leonard heading off to the NFL. And then Kevin Bauman, it's just tough. He's just one of those kids that you want to see succeed. and somebody that you want to
Mhm.
watch have as much of a successful career as they can with how much adversity that he battled through. And unfortunately, he made the decision to step away from football because of the amount of
Smart.
injuries. So, yeah, it
It
is.
is. It's let's start with just Kevin there because we were hopeful that he'd be able to make it through the year just because of how hard he worked to get back and but you kind of thought that something like this was going to come and that he was going to he hasn't finished a season in a while. He was able to make it through last season partly because he didn't play very much and practice very much, but he missed all but the 4 games in 23, all but 4 games in 22 with different injuries. I respect the kid for how hard he worked to get back, and you just feel terrible for him. You just wished he could carve out a niche in his last season, and unfortunately, he's not going to get to do that. I really hope, and I don't know if he's going to do this or not. I have no idea one way or the other, but I do hope he stays around the team because I'd like to see him. Your hard work is not going to pay off for you personally, but you were part of what this team was and is will become. And I hope he's able to stick around. I don't know how that's going to be. He's a 6-year senior. He may be done with all the school. I don't know what his plans are in life, but you feel bad for him there. And then there's the practical aspects of you hope that he can make it back because he was going to give you a solid number 2 tight end option. We saw how well he played in the blue gold game. Caught the deep pass early on, beat a Don Schuler over the top, made a great catch of the first CJ Carr throw of the blue gold game. Blocked well in that game. Him and Eli Reardon had some really nice combo blocks and 12 personnel in that game. And you thought if he could stay healthy, he gives you good depth. Now that he's out and Cooper Flanagan is also out, Eli Reardon has a checkered injury history. The tight end position is now in a little bit of a precarious situation, Trevor, where you better hope everybody else can stay healthy. If everybody stays healthy, I think they're going to be okay for a few reasons. Number one is I think Jack Larson can give you a role as a pass catcher, a hybrid blocker. Jack's not the biggest guy, but Jack's a high effort guy as a blocker. I think he can hold his own. Ty Washington's a solid blocker from what we saw from him in Arkansas. They both give you some solid pass game options at the least. Jack Larson also had a great catch over Don Schuler in the blue gold game. And then you've got James Flanagan, who, as I reported in my preseason intel, was already going to be a guy that's going to be hard to keep off the field as a blocker. And now I think he gets an even better shot to kind of be in there in some 12 personnel stuff when they're trying to run the football. And then the other thing that helps them kind of overcome this is I do expect this to be a team that's more built on 11 personnel and 20 personnel and 21 personnel this season. I do think we're going to see them try more times to get Jeremiah Love on the field with Jadarian Price or Aeneas Williams or Jabron Payne or Nolan James. We'll talk about that here in a minute. So I think those two things are why they're positioned to overcome the loss of Kevin Bauman as long as there's not another one. And there's a chance that Cooper Flanagan could be back for the postseason or at least close to the postseason. We'll see. But I'm not necessarily banking on that yet. We'll see how his recovery continues to go. But as long as they don't have any more injuries, then I think that they'll be okay.
Do you think that there's any sort of contingent plan in place just in case? Because I feel like it's one of those situations where you kind of have to prepare for the worst, hope for the best type of deal. So is it just you kind of keep rolling with the guys that you have, or is there some sort of contingency plan, do you think?
I have to think that they've at least talked as a staff. What do they do if there's another injury? Do they consider moving a Preston Zinner type of guy? But I think ultimately what they're just going to end up doing is less 12 personnel, but then just activate guys like Justin Fisher and Henry Garrity, who are solid football players as well. And we talked about the scholarship guys, but Henry Garrity is a guy that caught a pass in the blue gold game. He's a kid that's got some talent, a little under, has got some talent. Justin Fisher's a kid that could. Justin Fisher to me is a better version of Davis Sherwood from a couple years ago, who helped them out. Now Davis did some nice things for Notre Dame, but to me, Justin Fisher's an even just a better athlete, a little bit of a bigger athlete. He's played running back for Notre Dame. He's played some tight end at Notre Dame. He's a quarterback in high school. I think that that would most likely be an option if you needed sort of that second blocking tight end. He can give you some movement stuff, moving across the line, split zone stuff, blocking on the edge. And then he's a legit weapon with the ball in his hands. Justin Fisher's a good football player. So I think those are the two most likely options, but I think you at least have to consider the possibility that you may have to move somebody over, and I would imagine Preston Zinner would be a guy that gets a look, but he's in a position where they have some precarious injury situations. Boubacar has to prove he can be healthy. You've got Jordan Patel coming off of an injury. So I think there's at least the walk-ons they have are quality players that if they're your third or fourth tight end, because like right now, those guys are fifth and sixth. If there's another injury and you've got to activate Justin Fisher a little bit or activate Henry Garrity a little bit, you're still okay as long as you've got, the other two guys. You get into a situation where you lose two more, now you're in a bit of a pickle. But I don't know that there's anyone, like if they lose Eli Raridan, there's no one they're going to move there that's going to give you what Eli Raridan gave you. And that's kind of the danger that you have. But that was true before Kevin Bauman got hurt. And it's why it was so important to get Ian Premer and Preston Friesel in the 26 class. So I just think with Kevin, that's the case. And then when you look at running back, I'll tell you a reaction that I had that kind of frustrating for me was to see people talk about like, well, this is no big deal. He wasn't going to play anyway. Yeah, he was. I'm just telling you from the sources that I have and what we've seen from different things and what I've been told about things that were happening in the spring practice when we weren't around and even the first few days of fall camp before he got injured, he was going to play this year. And at the very least, he had a great shot to be a short yardage goal line guy. But he was pushing for, okay, he might be the number 3 back. Just as far as like when there's an injury to Jadarian Price or Jeremiah Love, he's the next guy in there. He was really turning heads. And so I think we need to be able to acknowledge that this is a loss when you lose a kid like Kedren Young, who's as talented as he is, who the staff was building a role for. I had a Notre Dame coach tell me last year, we really thought long and hard about activating him for the playoff games. And he actually did play against Indiana. He was in there on a couple plays against Indiana, and they were talking about ramping it up, but they just felt like we've been going with the way we've been going for as long as we have. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. But he was practicing so well at the end of the year that the staff really thought long and hard about activating him and getting him in there in the postseason. So that's a loss. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he brings a completely different skill set than any other back they have on the roster when you look at that size and power. So we need to acknowledge that first. But then we can also acknowledge this, that they're so loaded at running back that this is the kind of injury you can sustain and be just fine. And that can be a tough thing. It's like fans want to just say they're going to be okay. So they say things that either, directly or like intentionally or unintentionally are sort of like a dismissal of how good Kedren is. And we shouldn't do that. But we can't brag all offseason about how they've got 6 deep at running back. And then when they're now only 5 deep, which is still more than really anybody else in college football, they're still okay. So yes, that's a big loss. He would have helped them a ton because my response is, but wouldn't you have been better off with those 5 plus Kedren Young? Of course. But Jeremiah Love obviously is arguably the best back in the country. Jadarian Price, in my opinion, is a top 10 national running back. We saw what Aeneas Williams could do last year in a third down role. We saw what Jabron Payne could do 2 years ago as a third down back. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Don't sleep on Nolan James Jr. cracking the rotation this year. That kid has really impressed me in drills. He looks like a tank, but you watch him catch the ball in practice, Trevor. He's got some of the better hands on the team. That kid can really catch the football, and he's been turning heads all fall camp. And he is going to be much harder to keep off the field than I even thought. And I'm someone who was very high on Nolan James Jr., as you know, Trevor. I had him as a national top 150 overall player coming in. He's been even better than expected. And he's thicker than I thought he was going to be. Like he's really taken to the weight room. He's built like a tank. But his foot quickness, his power, his ability to catch the ball, his elusiveness have all stood out. So they're going to be okay as long as they can they can sustain one more injury and still be okay. Go more past that, then you get into trouble. But yes, this is a big loss. There's no doubt about it. But when you've got a kid like, okay, so now what do? You play Aeneas Williams more, you play Nolan James Jr. more, you're still going to be pretty good because those are very talented backs. But so they're both tough injuries. I think that the Bauman injury hurts a little bit more simply because the depth isn't as good as what the depth is at running back, even though I think there was a chance Kedren could have played an even bigger role than Kevin Bauman. I just think you're in a better position overcome that loss than you were at tight end, which was a position we had already said multiple times this summer. Like, you better hope nobody goes down because you're an injury away from that being a little bit of a not really sure how this one's going to go this year. So that's where we're at, Trev. That's where we're at.
Agreed. It's definitely a weird line to walk when, you have an injury to a running back like Kedren Young. It's that gray area of you can sustain the injury, but you also can't say the injury doesn't matter. So I agree with you completely. Listen, folks, that's going to do it for part 1 of today's show. You guys know what to do. Be sure to hit that like button. We have plenty of more content coming your way. But as always, subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com.